Imagine raising a daughter, giving her everything, your time, your love, your savings, only to one day discover that when it came time for her big engagement celebration, you weren't even invited. Not forgotten, not overlooked, but intentionally excluded. She had the dinner, smiled in the pictures, toasted with champagne, and didn't even tell me until after it was all over. But the real twist? Just a few days later, she came crawling back, not with an apology, but with a desperate request. And that's when I taught her the lesson she'll never forget. Was I too harsh, or did she deserve it? You decide. Let me take you back a few months. It was an ordinary Wednesday afternoon. I had just settled into my recliner with a crossword puzzle and a cup of coffee that had gone lukewarm because, well, that's what happens when you're old. Your coffee gets cold while you're too busy staring out the window thinking about life. My phone buzzed on the table. It was my daughter. Let's call her Emily. Now let me tell you something about Emily. She wasn't just my daughter. She was my world. My wife passed away when Emily was only 12 years old. Do you know what it's like, raising a teenage girl alone? Packing lunches in the morning, teaching her how to drive, sewing her prom dress because we couldn't afford the fancy one? I wasn't just her father. I was her entire support system. So when I saw her name flash on the phone, I smiled. I thought, maybe she's finally calling to ask if I'll walk her down the aisle. That's the kind of thought you have as a father. I picked up. Hey, sweetheart, just wondering, what time's the engagement dinner? Should I wear my good suit? There was a pause so sharp I could hear my own heartbeat. Then she said it. Oh, we already had it yesterday, just close family. I chuckled nervously. That's funny. You're joking, right? Her voice was flat. No, Dad. We just kept it small. His parents, siblings, a few friends. It wasn't really a big deal. My throat went dry. My own daughter. The girl I raised, the girl who cried on my shoulder when she lost her first job, who called me when she had a flat tire at 2 a.m, now telling me I wasn't close family. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But instead, I just said quietly, I see. She mumbled something about being busy and hung up, and there I was, staring at the blank TV screen across the room, wondering when exactly I had stopped being family. That night, I sat at my kitchen table long after the sun went down. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. My crossword puzzle lay untouched. I thought about my wife, God rest her soul. What would she say if she knew our daughter had excluded me like that? She always used to tell Emily, your father may not be perfect, but he's the man who shows up, and I always did. I showed up for ballet recitals, even when I didn't understand a thing about dance. I showed up for high school football games, even though Emily wasn't playing. She was in the marching band, third row flute. I showed up for every birthday, every Christmas morning, every little thing that mattered. So why wasn't I good? Enough now? I kept replaying her words. Just close family. The more I thought about it, the more it became clear. It wasn't an accident. She didn't forget. She didn't overlook me. She chose not to invite me. Why? Because her fiancé's family is rich, old money rich. They live in a house with columns out front and a driveway longer than my entire street. They wear suits that cost more than my car. And me? I'm just a retired mechanic who wears flannel shirts and still eats TV dinners. I didn't fit. I wasn't shiny enough. I wasn't presentable enough for the image she wanted to project. And that realization burned deeper than any insult ever could. Now here's the part that might make me sound petty, but it's important. I had been helping Emily financially for years. I'd co-signed on her student loans. I'd paid part of her rent when she was getting started in her career. And yes, I had even given her a credit card on my account for emergencies, and something in my gut told me she had used that very card to pay for her precious engagement dinner, the same dinner I wasn't invited to. That night, as I sat alone, I whispered to myself, if she thinks she can have my money without my presence, she's about to learn a hard lesson. And with that, I picked up the phone, called the bank, and canceled the card. No yelling, no warning, just silence. Because sometimes Silence is louder than anger. It was 3 days later, a Saturday morning. I was outside trimming the hedges when my phone rang. At first, I didn't bother answering. These days, most calls are spam about car warranties or politicians begging for donations. But then I saw the name on the screen, Emily. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, took a deep breath, and answered. Hello? What I heard next, I'll never forget. Her voice was trembling, frantic, almost childlike. Dad! Oh my God! Dad! You have to help me. The card didn't go through. Did you forget to pay the bill? I stood there with my pruning shears in hand, staring at the roses I'd been clipping. I could hear the panic in her tone, like a little girl who'd lost her toy in the store aisle. Slow down, I said, keeping my voice calm. What card are we talking about? The one you gave me, she snapped. The restaurant called me this morning. They said the payment for the engagement dinner bounced. The card declined, Dad. Everyone was there, and now they're threatening to contact us about it. Dad, what happened? I closed my eyes. So my gut had been right. She had used my card to pay for the dinner. The dinner I wasn't even invited to. I let a few seconds of silence hang in the air before replying. You mean the engagement dinner I wasn't invited to? That dinner? Her breathing grew heavier on the other end. Dad, please, not now. This isn't about that. This is serious. His parents were there, his co-workers were there, and now the restaurant manager is furious. You need to fix this. Today. I almost laughed. She said it wasn't about that. Not about excluding me, not about slicing me out of her life like a piece of fat from a steak. No, suddenly it was about me coming to the rescue again, just like always. Emily, I said slowly, deliberately. Why didn't you tell me you were going to use that card? I didn't think it mattered, she cried. You said it was for emergencies, and this was an emergency. My jaw tightened. An emergency is when your car breaks down in the middle of the night. An emergency is when you can't pay for medicine. An emergency is not throwing a dinner party and sticking your father with the bill. There was silence. Then a choked sob. Dad, please, you don't understand. They're already looking at me differently. His mom asked me why you weren't there. She thinks maybe you didn't approve of the marriage, and now this. They're saying I'm irresponsible. They're saying Her voice cracked. Untrustworthy. I felt a pang in my chest. Not because I pitied her, but because this was the very moment I had been waiting for. The rope she had tied so neatly around herself was finally tightening. I leaned against the porch railing and said quietly, Didn't I warn you, sweetheart? Didn't I warn you that one day, when you pushed me aside, I wouldn't be there to save you? Her breathing hitched. Dad, you're really not going to help me? I thought about it for a long moment. I thought about the empty chair. At that engagement dinner, the one where I should have been sitting. I thought about her words. Just close family. And then I answered, No, Emily, not this time. This is your bill to pay, not mine. You wanted a life without me at the table. Well, this is what that life looks like. Her sobs grew louder. You're punishing me. You're ruining everything. No, I said firmly. You ruined everything when you decided your father wasn't worth a seat at your table. And with that, I hung up the phone. For the rest of that day, I felt strangely light, almost free. For years, I had been her safety net. Every mistake she made, I caught her. Every bill she couldn't handle, I paid. Every mess she created, I cleaned. But this time, I let her fall. And let me tell you something, folks. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge isn't about doing something to someone. It's about not doing something. It's about stepping back, folding your arms, and watching them deal with the storm they created. And believe me, her storm was only beginning. The day after I hung up on Emily, my phone started buzzing. First, it was my sister, who lives 2 states over. Why didn't you tell me you weren't invited to Emily's engagement dinner? She asked, her voice sharp with confusion. I didn't know until the day after, I replied calmly. She gasped. What do you mean you didn't know? You're her father. Exactly. Then came a call from one of my cousins. Then an old neighbor. Word travels fast in families, faster than wildfire. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Why would Emily leave me out? And do you know what I did? Nothing. I didn't badmouth her. I didn't rant. I just said, You'll have to ask Emily that question. Because the truth? I didn't need to lift a finger. She was digging her own grave with every excuse she made. Later that week, I got another call. This time from a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Mr. Thompson? It was a man's voice, smooth, polite. This is Richard Williams. I'm Michael's father. Michael, of course, being Emily's fiancé. I straightened in my chair. This was going to be interesting. I just wanted to ask, why weren't you at the dinner? My wife and I were under the impression you weren't supportive of the engagement. Is that the case? I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. Not at all, sir. I support my daughter's happiness. I simply wasn't invited. There was a pause. A long one. Not invited? By your own daughter? That's correct. I could almost hear him exhaling on the other end. I see. Well, that explains a lot. She said you were busy, that you couldn't make it. Busy? She had lied to cover her tracks. I smiled grimly. I wasn't busy. I was available, just not included. He cleared his throat. Well, that's concerning. And then, this whole issue with the restaurant bill. Mr. Thompson, I hope you don't think less of us. We had no idea. Of course not, I replied politely. Your family has nothing to do with her choices. We ended the call cordially, but I could feel the cracks forming. Rich families like his, they value appearances, they value honesty, and Emily had failed on both counts. That evening, my phone rang again. This time it was Emily. Her tone was sharp, defensive. Did you talk to Michael's dad? Yes, I said evenly. Why did you have to tell him you weren't invited? She shouted. I frowned. Because it's the truth. You made me look bad. No, Emily. You made yourself look bad when you lied about me. I didn't have to say anything. The truth spoke for itself. She fell silent, but I could hear her breathing hard through the receiver. Then softer, almost pleading. Dad, you don't get it. They're judging me now. They think I'm selfish. They think I'm manipulative. I let her words hang in the air before answering. Well, Emily, sometimes people judge us not by what we say, but by what we do. Click. She hung up. Over the next week, I started getting little pieces of gossip from relatives. Apparently, Michael's mother had expressed concerns about Emily's maturity. His sister had made a snide remark about how some people don't respect their elders. Even Michael himself had reportedly asked her, why didn't you want your dad there? And each time she scrambled for an excuse, she looked worse. See, revenge isn't always a dramatic act of payback. Sometimes, it's simply stepping back and allowing someone's own choices to collapse around them like a house of cards. That's exactly what was happening to my daughter. One evening, about a week after the infamous call, I was sitting on my porch, rocking gently in my chair when headlights pulled into my driveway. It was Emily. She stepped out of the car, her hair a mess, her makeup streaked like she'd been crying for hours. She didn't look like the polished young woman she wanted the world to see. She looked like a little girl again, scared, lost, vulnerable. She walked up the porch steps and stood in front of me. Dad, she whispered, her voice cracking. I need to talk to you. I nodded to the chair beside me. She sat down, clutching her purse like it was a lifeline. Tears welled in her eyes. Everything's falling apart. Michael's parents don't trust me. He's been distant, and everyone keeps asking why I didn't invite you. I don't know what to say anymore. I turned to look at her. Really look at her. My daughter, the one I had held in my arms the day she was born, the one I had raised through scraped knees and broken hearts. And yet here she was, facing the consequences of cutting me out. I spoke slowly, my words heavy with the weight of years. Emily, do you understand now? Do you see what happens when you treat family like an accessory you can leave at home? Do you see what happens when you trade respect for appearances? Her lips quivered. I was wrong. I nodded. Yes, you were. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. I don't know how to fix this. I put my hand gently on her shoulder. You fix it by being honest, by admitting you made a mistake, by learning that respect is worth more than any dinner, any impression, any polished image. You fix it by remembering who stood by you when nobody else did. She sniffled, nodding slowly, but I wasn't done. And Emily, let this be the last time you use my money without my permission. You want to live like an adult? Then you pay your own bills like one. Her eyes widened. So you're not going to? No, I said firmly. I'm not paying it. That debt is yours. And maybe the sting of it will remind you that family isn't something you can just buy and sell. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. For once, she had no comeback. We sat in silence for a while, the crickets chirping in the distance. And for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the weak one. I wasn't the pushover. I was the father, the one who had the power to teach the hardest, yet most necessary lesson of all. The days that followed Emily's visit were quiet, too quiet. I half expected another storm of calls, maybe even Michael himself showing up at my door demanding explanations. But instead, there was silence until one Sunday afternoon. I was sitting in church. Yes, even old mechanics like me still go to church. When I felt a hand on my shoulder, I turned, and there she was, Emily. Standing in the aisle, her eyes red, but her chin held high. Dad, she whispered, can we talk? Outside? We stepped into the cool air, and before I could speak, she blurted out, you were right. I raised an eyebrow. About what? About everything, she said, her voice shaking. About the dinner? About respect? About money? I thought I was protecting myself, making myself look good in front of Michael's family. But all I did was make myself look selfish. And now I might lose him. I studied her face. She looked broken. Not the polished woman trying to impress the rich in-laws, but the little girl who used to climb into my lap when she had nightmares. Emily, I said gently, marriage isn't about appearances. It isn't about who throws the fanciest dinner or who has the richest family. It's about honesty, trust. And if you can't show those things to your own father, how can you show them to your husband? Her lips trembled. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, I said softly, you don't. Not yet. Forgiveness is earned. But I'll tell you this. I still love you, and I always will. I just won't let you use me anymore. She nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. I'll fix it. I'll pay the restaurant. I'll tell Michael's family the truth, and I'll make it right with you. For the first time in weeks, I believed her. Maybe she had finally seen the cost of her choices, but I wasn't going to let her off too easy. One condition, I said. Her eyes widened. Anything. You invite me to the wedding, not because people expect it, not because you want to save face, but because you truly want your father there. If you can't do that, then don't invite me at all. She swallowed hard and whispered, I want you there. I want you to walk me down the aisle. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled. So here I am telling you all this story. Not because I'm proud of what happened. Believe me, no father dreams of teaching his daughter a lesson this way, but because it's real. It's what happens when you forget that family isn't about convenience. We seniors, we give so much. Our time, our money, our love. We bend, we sacrifice. We work until our hands are cracked and our backs are bent, all to give our children better lives. And yet sometimes they forget. They see us not as people, but as safety nets, as wallets, as relics they can shove into the corner when we don't fit their picture. But let me tell you something. Respect is earned, not demanded. And when you cut out the very people who built the foundation under your feet, don't be surprised when the ground crumbles beneath you. Was I cruel? Some might say so. Some might say I should have just paid the bill and kept the peace. But I ask you, if I had done that, would she have learned anything? Or would she have walked all over me again and again? Sometimes love isn't about giving. Sometimes love is about stepping back, about letting the people you love stumble so they can finally learn to stand on their own. And Emily? She stumbled hard, but maybe, just maybe, she'll never forget. The lesson. Family isn't about money or appearances or convenience. Family is about respect. Now let me ask you, dear viewers, because I know this will split opinions. If your daughter excluded you from her engagement dinner but then begged you to bail her out, would you have paid the bill? Or would you have let her face the consequences like I did? I want to hear your thoughts. Tell me in the comments, because sometimes the hardest lessons make the best teachers. And if you stuck with me all the way to the end, thank you. You're more family to me than some people I share blood with. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more real tales from this old man's chair. Because believe me, I've got plenty more.